listen, it's all Man United this, it's all Man United that, because we're in free fall and we're continuing to lose games. Like I said, four wins in 14 is just, it's out of this world bad. It's scary bad. It's a disgrace. It really, really is. But I just feel now, which I did fear would happen if he continues to lose, there's going to be this shift that points towards Ruben Amorim. And that's what I've started to see after the Spurs game. And for me personally, as a United fan, I can't understand why. I can understand he needs to improve. I can understand we expected to see better by now. I can understand that it's very bad. But what is the solution? To sack Ruben Amorim before he's even got a pre-season, before he's even managed to buy and sell players properly? Like, what is this? I don't understand. Like, look, the frustration has set in because Man United are this bad. Totally get that. I'm frustrated. But to think that the solution is to pull the plug on Ruben Amorim 2.5 months into a job when he's got a 2.5-year contract, which, by the way, also people kept saying change this. What are we changing back to? Last time I checked, when Erik ten Hag was getting marched out, he was ridiculed. These same players in the system that everyone's telling Ruben Amorim to go back to, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2. Last time I checked, Man United were awful in that as well. Last time I checked, Erik ten Hag didn't have a style of play. He ditched that style of play after getting spanked 4-0 away at Brentford and went, I'm not doing that. Then they said, can you play the Ajax way? He said, can't play the Ajax way. I haven't got Ajax players. Lost almost the whole fan base. Now we've got a guy who's been brought here for an actual philosophy to stick to something that has some longevity, that is having, I'm not even going to say teething problems. It's been torn apart right now, with players who don't fit that system, with a script that was written for different actors. Now we're asking him to come in mid-season and fix it, when the guy before him all failed. So listen, I get that Ruben Amorim can't just get a complete free pass, but to suggest that, I tell you what, he's going to have to go, that's where I draw the line. I just think that's totally stupid.
Yeah, ask questions of the manager by all means, and people in press conferences should be asking him questions, and then he's got a right to respond, and he'll have his reason for doing the things that he's doing at the moment. I think this is the biggest failure that a traditional Big Six club has ever had in Premier League history.
The biggest.
Teams of the traditional Big Six have had bad seasons before. I think Chelsea had a bad season where they finished 12th. Spurs have had some off seasons. You know, every team in that Big Six has had bad seasons, but nobody's failed to the extent that Manchester United are failing at the moment. But with that in mind, I still don't think it's the manager's fault. I think obviously he's part of it at the moment, but to sack him now would show me even more that Ineos don't know what they're doing.
Dan, if they sacked him...
And I don't think they do know what they're doing, by the way.
It doesn't look like it for the first year. And if they sacked him before the summer or in the summer, they should walk out and leave the club with him if they did that.
Yeah,
that's
not
honestly,
the answer.
because the negligence then to bring someone in who, again, they've lauded and said he's the main man, just like Dan Ashworth, and he's nowhere to be seen anymore, sacked.
I mean, that's farcical in itself.
That's what I mean.
That's one thing, and that's farcical.
One thing. So, Laurie Whitwell was a very, very well-connected journalist. I know Laurie well, and for him to say that, quote, he said that that Ineos are wedded to Ruben Amorim in terms of they understand the card he's been dealt, and he's not going to get sacked, essentially. And that's what should happen. You can't expect somebody to come in with all of the failings of this club and fix it immediately. Now, I'm not saying everyone is expecting him to have Man United challenging by now. And of course, when he first came in, when Erik ten Hag got kicked out, I think it was probably about 4 or 5 points off of top four. So of course,
you got very excited when he came in, if I recall.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And listen, I'm still excited for the future for him, but I understand that the short-term future, he needs wins. He needs wins. But now there's reports, the players are saying they don't really like the system. Chris Wheeler in the Mirror say, the players don't like the system anymore. Hang on a minute.
The players need to get a grip.
This is what I'm saying.
This is the groundhog day with every manager.
And this is what I mean, Dan. It's like there's such a bigger problem than just the manager. It's the mentality of the players. It's the quality of the players. And overall, even above that, it's the institution. It's the environment of which that has been set. It's the culture from right at the top. Ineos chopping jobs like no tomorrow. Fine. I get it. There has to be drastic change, right? But getting rid of a couple of coaches who go into the community to do coaching with the kids in schools. versus a couple of people who cook the food or some catering staff. It's just not even scratching the surface of what the real issues are. When Ineos are spending the best part of 12, 13, 40 million pounds having to get rid of Erik ten Hag when they wanted to in the summer, and they then invested into him with 200 million in that summer for his squad, and then are now trying to undo that. That's way more costly than saying we're not giving the staff the £50 Christmas bonus versus the effect that actually has on morale. Is that trade-off, sacking people who earn 30k a year, 40k a year, a few of those that save a few $100,000 a year, is that trade-off worth upsetting the whole environment and having everybody in eggshells, which filters through the whole thing? I don't believe it is. Ineos have made the most costly errors since they've been there, not the people who are actually working on the ground. And don't get me wrong, Ineos have walked into years of failings. Glazers have been there since 2005. They are the biggest problem. They're the biggest virus at Manchester United, not Marcus Rashford, not Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard, because they made the dressing room cancerous and all of these types of things that get labelled about. Because last I checked, all these players have left and Man United look like this. So it isn't Paul Pogba's fault, is it? It's not Jesse Lingard and it's not Marcus Rashford. So it's the actual owners of the football club, which I think we're losing sight of. But Ineos, for me, have done nothing to improve that within a year.
Have Ineos done anything well? I can't really think of one thing. It always makes me laugh. Well, not makes me laugh, but there's cuts left, right, and centre, redundancies, which is never a nice thing. But there's people that Ineos have employed who will be taking home millions of pounds a year. You don't see any of them taking a pay cut or anything along those lines, do you? It's always the honest people that end up suffering. I think these people that have come in, I'm really not convinced at the moment. They just all look like a bunch of chancers that have rode into Manchester United, making all these grand promises that they're going to get Manchester United back to where they need to be. But at the moment, they've taken them backwards. And I get, if maybe trying to look at it from a bit more of a balanced side in another way. If Manchester United had kind of stayed the same as they were under Ten Hag, would that in some ways be worse? It's almost like they're now. Are they stripping it that far back and having to go so far back and take the club so far backwards now, eventually to move them forwards, if that makes sense?
Yeah,
is that in some ways better than just standing still?
Stripping it all bare to see just how bad it is, so that there can be no cover-up, there can be no new manager bounce that just makes us think that actually we're onto something. No, realise how bad you are. And I think the problem with Ineos, when I actually think about it, is Ineos' success, or Sir Jim Ratcliffe's success in petrochemicals, etc., has come with, he's a great businessman at looking at products. So they make pharmaceuticals, they're products, right? Not people. Manchester United is a huge football club with many people in it. And the product that is being made is the football, which is based off of people. And I think that when you have such success and you're so cutthroat within petrochemicals and stuff like that, that's finding different assets and finding different products to make one thing, to go and sell it for as cheap as possible, to make as much. That's product, that's fine. But when you're dealing with people, I think that's where they massively fall down, because look at their other sporting ventures. They haven't been great, have they? If you look at cycling, you look at America's Cup, sailing, if you look at Nice, there's not a huge track record in sport. You look at what's going on with the New Zealand rugby team at the moment, that gets sued for sponsorship. So their track record in sport when dealing with people doesn't seem to match up with how successful he is with dealing with products, and that's glaringly obvious for me. And I, as a United fan, I'm just so worried. I don't know how they're going to get hold of this. Of course, you're allowed to make mistakes in your first year. Didn't expect them to come in and wave a wand and get everything right in a year. I get that, but I think they've contributed to making it worse. I
mean, but you don't expect everything they do to be a mistake, do you? And that's how it looks at the moment. I think Manchester United's got so far away from, one, what it wants to be, and two, what it should be. I used to, look, I'm not a Manchester United fan, but I could respect the club growing up because they were a brilliant team. Alex Ferguson was brilliant. They had some brilliant players and they had that will to win, and they found a way to win. Nowadays, if I see they're on Super Sunday or Saturday tea time football, Saturday lunchtime football, I think,
do I want to watch this?
Can I be bothered to sit through and watch that?
It's a chore.
Obviously, I sat.
Try going to every game.
No, I know. Obviously, it's my job, so I do watch football, and I watch Sunday. And Spurs are pretty rotten in all honesty.
Game too,
but I watched it and I thought before the game even kicked off, I thought, Man U won't win this.
No, and you know what the worst thing is, actually? I was at the game as well, and the first 10 minutes we couldn't get a kick. I'm like, we're going to get a touch of the ball, but then we get the first 2 shots on target. I'm thinking, tell you what, Spurs are open here. We can do something. And the manner of the goal. It's basically like the same goal in the Carabao Cup when Bayern parries it to Solanke and he gets a tap in as well. Onana comes in, does the same thing. And then Garnacho, look, I don't know how he misses that when Bruno puts it on a plate for him. I have no idea. And then in the second half, we came out really strong. We had Spurs on the back foot, but then I do think Spurs were able to use their bench, which they've got players back, and you saw what our bench was, and sort of rode the storm. And then Spurs went, right, I tell you what, let's get Sarr in here and Johnson. Then a few moments later, let's get Bissouma on and let's get Archie Gray on. So they started to ride the storm, whereas we looked to our bench and he put Chido Obi on for 3 minutes.
What did you make of that though? Obviously, neither of us have, just the bench in general, neither of us are football managers. Obviously, Amorim's got a lot more experience of being a football manager than we have. But I can't believe that in that game, regardless of the personnel that you have there on the bench, I can't believe that he didn't just try and inject something a little bit earlier.
Just gamble.
The one thing, if Manchester United, I get that he might not want to put them into the current environment because it's pretty rotten, but if kids aren't getting games now when there's so many injuries and the club's performing so badly, when are they ever going to get a chance? You're telling me I don't know much about them, but you're telling me a couple of them couldn't have come on and tried to impact that game in a positive way. Give the fans something to get behind.
His rationale behind that was that actually the game was fairly even, and
you still need fresh legs in a football match.
And I agree. After a certain point, get Sekou Kono in there, get Casemiro a rest. He hasn't played in ages, etc., etc. Chido is the one for me. I think he's so highly rated. That's the one where you're saying, give him a go. Højlund wasn't doing anything by this point. Give him 15, 20 minutes. 3 minutes at a point as well. He brought him on in the game after Onana.
Not brought him on.
Onana just threw the ball out to Dorgu when we're under pressure, maybe trying to nick an equaliser. Throws the ball to Dorgu, gives away a stupid free kick. So Spurs are in sort of consolidation mode. Vicario was running out of his goals, watching him going, what are you lot doing? Get in that corner. Go to the corner. And Chido didn't even get a touch. Great for him and his family to make his professional debut. I get that. But he should have got given more time. That's the Man United rant over.
We're not going back.
I'd like to just get it out of the way earlier.
You're in the trenches at the moment.
In the absolute trenches.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.